This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn.
So it's been quite a while since Twitter rebranded to X. So it's probably a good time to start discussing, whether or not has it worked or is it a bit of a failure. It definitely has ripped up all of the rule of thumb and the rules of branding. And for me, it's still very hard to be able to say X. For me, straight away, it's Twitter. If I'm talking about any campaign, if I'm talking about the platform, straight away, I say Twitter. It's just there, stuck in my mind. It just rolls off my tongue easily. X, I really have to think about it. It's almost like when I say Twitter, I go, oh, no, I mean X. I can never say X straight away. I always say Twitter. And I guess it's been a few months, and I presume it will change eventually. But it was also like when we were using Monday.com back in the day, and it was called Da Pulse.
Yeah.
And I just refused to call it Monday.com for a while because it was confusing me. Also because of that branding was quite confusing, to be honest, especially in the day of week. Let's do it on Monday. Let's do it on Monday. That phrase just never worked for me. I think it caused so much confusion in the office. Oh, but you said we're meeting today. No, you said let's do it on Monday. So yeah, what do you? How's it? How have you seen the landscape of X change since the rebranding from Twitter?
It's an interesting one. I still see a lot of people post X, previously Twitter, in brackets after it, right? Or follow us on X, previously Twitter, and you just
like someone who just got married.
Exactly. You have to explain it, right? It's like it's not. I don't think people are there yet. And I mean, at the time, I really was shocked. It was such a weird change in my mind. It felt to me a little bit like Elon was throwing a little tantrum at something. It was a little knee-jerk because it didn't fit any of the rationale for doing a rebrand, right? Nothing. If we look at all the rebrands we've done over the years, they were always based on really good, solid rationale. And then the implementation of it is a separate thing, right? Because even that, how you implement a rebrand, especially a rebrand that is consumer facing, is really important. And none of that was followed. None of it. So if you think about and the Pulse Monday is a good one. I don't know why they rebranded.
No.
But
Me neither.
And as you say, it wasn't, if they had ever talked to their consumers about how they use the brand name, let's log it on the Pulse, let's do it on the Pulse, etc., they would have realized that Monday would have been jarring. And the same with X, right? X is what? X is symbolic of porn, right? Like it's just
that's true.
It doesn't talk about communication or collaboration or sharing or anything.
Yeah, even the phonetics of it, it's like it doesn't have the number of syllables. There isn't enough there to have a ring to the name, if that makes sense. Like Twitter, I don't know how to explain it, but the phonetics doesn't work. Just X, it doesn't really work for me. Maybe it was also it's a pun. Maybe he just actually wants to get rid of it, and that's why he's calling it X, like the X thing. You never know.
And even the verbiage, right? So we say tweet now, and people are still saying tweet on X, previously Twitter. It's really because there isn't a replacement. What do you say instead of tweet?
No.
For any South Africans listening, we can say Exe, because obviously Elon is South African. So maybe he's holding on to his roots somehow. And
you say what in South Africa?
Exe, which is I say.
Okay. Maybe. You never know.
We're going to start rolling out Afrikaans to the masses now. You Exe on X. There we go.
But it is just mad to me. It's like I can't think of one brand in the world that isn't striving to become a verb.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when
And,
you've won, right? You've
yeah,
won if
you've
you're a
become a
verb.
verb. That's it. You've won. It's almost like, that's the marketing that I completed it. There's nothing else left to do. It's just incredible. And then it just, like you said, it was almost like a tantrum overnight, just threw it out the window immediately.
Mm.
X, what does that mean?
But
And
we don't know. We don't know if he maybe pondered this for years before he bought it, and this was always his plan. Like, we don't know what's going on there. And he's actually a brilliant marketer. If you look at his marketing for Tesla, and that, I mean, it's fantastic, right? Like he knows what he's doing.
well,
So
he's a disruptive
I'm
marketer, isn't he?
waiting. Sorry?
He's a disruptive marketer.
Exactly.
It's not. He doesn't really do anything. He doesn't do the doesn't use the playbook, the standard playbook. But it's also it's product marketing, isn't it? Really, it's not necessarily brand marketing in the sense that he uses the product as a disruptive element or tool to create to create to create conversations and noise around the brand itself rather than pushing the brand.
And definitely this change created noise, right? All marketers were talking about it. Not a single marketer that I saw thought it was a great idea. So, there's a lot that I follow, and no, just to see if I was missing something, but nobody said, yes, wow, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So he did great noise, but I'm not sure if it worked for him. We'll see about that. I mean,
So
people are still on it. I haven't
yeah,
heard about mass exodus off X, right?
no, it's still very popular. And when you're looking at just watching the news, for example, and they always have a quote from whatever social media. I always see it from X. I don't see it from Threads.
Yeah, agree.
But one of them's going to have to go eventually, surely, because you always have the competing. I mean, you have Instagram and Facebook, but they have different functions. LinkedIn or whatever have different functions. X and Threads are basically the same right now, no? So I feel like one will cave in at some point.
I don't know, maybe. I think the market's big enough, right? We can. There's enough space to share. We can stop fighting, right? There's lots of feet on the ground, lots of space to share. Maybe they'll take different angles.
I think they will.
Maybe one will become more personal and the other one more business. I don't know. But there's space. If you find a niche, there's space for everybody, right?
Well, they're talking about potentially creating a paywall on X.
Yep.
This time I read. I don't know what that would do in terms of the usage of X. And I feel like it would just become more of a bit more of a business angle if it became a paywall. Would it not?
Well, if it can get rid of some of the women and their naked bodies that keep popping up, that would really be good for me. So I vote. But it's also an interesting discussion that I have with people about free stuff doesn't necessarily mean quality stuff, right? So this is the problem, and our perception of freebies is lack of quality. So quality perception may be higher when there's a paywall.
Yeah, that definitely is an angle. I mean, for sure, it will alienate people 100%.
Yes,
but you're right. It might create it will create a different club.
Yeah, a different club that you need to qualify to be in.
Yeah.
Although that said, the scammers and hackers and catfish seem to have lots of money anyway. All this gold they want to send me and all the stuff. So maybe they'll be the first. Maybe it'll be a catfish club.
Have you ever been approached by a catfish on X?
Yeah, definitely. They've been there.
I actually feel quite jealous that I don't get these approaches. I think I've only ever had one catfish approach me.
that you know of. that you see, I met someone the other day who was talking about all these women that approach him all the time. And the more I was listening, the more I was like, those are catfish, buddy. Kind of popped his bubble because he literally thought he had hit the jackpot.
Yeah. Actually,
maybe you just don't know.
Well, I do get quite a few random people adding me on Instagram. They're usually just like females, but it's obvious that it's not a real account. And it's also, Instagram is not a good place to do it in my eyes from my usage of Instagram, because Instagram for me is people that I know or people that I'm aware of, famous people or something like that. It's not like a random bump into you in the street kind of thing. It's like if someone adds me and I don't know who they are, I go, no, delete.
But that's, I guess, the way you use it. It's not the way other people use it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the way I use it. But I guess other people are interested in just adding and expanding their network, or they see someone like, oh yeah, that's a good looking person. I'm going to add that person, see where this goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the reasons back to X, one of the reasons I struggled with the implementation was, any normal, and we've done some of these, right? Communication of a brand change to your consumers needs to be carefully handled, especially if it's so active and there's so many of them, and that they've used your logo everywhere. I mean, that little blue bird was on everyone's websites, everyone's email, it was everywhere. And there was nothing. There wasn't a heads up. This is coming. Here's the reasons why we're doing it. Here's the new logo in JPEG and PNG format and all the formats you may need so that you can replace it across the board. None of that, right? It wasn't, this is going to happen in 2 weeks' time, so you've got time to go and speak to your IT department, whatever it is. It was, it's done, over. And that I found super interesting. If you look at the way, we had the Facebook mega change, but that wasn't customer facing, right? They didn't change Facebook.
You're talking about the meta change.
Meta, sorry. Yeah. You're right. They didn't change Facebook. They changed the corporate brand.
Yeah.
And so the only people affected were staff and investors, really. The rest of us didn't care.
But even with that, there was a better rollout of it, even for the consumer point of view, because even though it was a corporate change and from a business sense, because when you're signing on to, as a business, when you're signing on to the accounts, you're creating meta accounts.
Yeah.
So there is some element of the consumer awareness and usage anyway. But there was a lot of talk about it. There was a lot of PR articles. There was, everywhere you looked, you saw it before the launch. And when they gave you the deadline that it was going to launch, and there was lots of press conferences held by Mark Zuckerberg. And even though that wasn't direct to consumer change like X, it was obvious it was happening and people were well aware of it.
And comfortable, right? And comfortable. So that was really interesting that this wasn't done, that there wasn't the thought put into how do I help my users through this change.
Yeah.
It
just from the surface of it, it seems like he wants it to be destroyed. I don't think that's the case, but from the actions, that's what it seems he wants to do with it. But in reality, I feel like he is quite wily. I'm sure there's another thing going on.
Well, I thought maybe, he's going to come back by now and go, joke. I was Twitter. Only kidding. It's back to Twitter, like that would be disruptive, right? You got people talking about it and then he'll get people talking about it again.
Yeah. What's his space venture? It's called SpaceX, right?
SpaceX, yeah. He likes X. It's obviously a thing for him.
Yeah, so maybe he's going to try and create connected brands or something later on down the line. I don't know. With SpaceX, X, maybe he's going to do the same with Tesla soon and just be like, okay, Tesla's not Tesla anymore. It's X cars, Car X or something like that. Can you imagine?
I see.
And you can't say no. You can't say no that he wouldn't do that.
I can't say no. It's possible,
You can't say
right?
no.
Anything is possible.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not logical, but it's possible.
Yeah, exactly. Because Tesla's absolutely booming now. With their brand is huge, and the car sales are just going through the roof as well. You see that every time I leave the house, I see a Tesla.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Elon, if you feel like talking to us and explaining what you're doing, we'd love to know and hear, and tell us what's next. We've got lots of ideas for you if you're interested in chatting.
But he would just want to chuck them up, probably.
Well, then we know we should use it with everyone else, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Those are a bit more risk averse.
Yeah.
Let's go the safe route of how to do this properly, rather than let's just do something disruptive.
Good point. All right, cool. Well, I'll see you next week then, Erica.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye. That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.